I got from,
Thank you all so much for coming today. My name is Rachel Crutchfield. I'm with the Dripping Springs Education Foundation. I'm on the board, and there are two other board members here today with us. This is Dr. Mary Jane Hetrick, and she is a professor for public and nonprofit administration, and she has been a volunteer and a consultant to nonprofits. She has a background in grant writing, and she has reviewed grants for other entities. So she is a great resource for any questions you may have. And if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you can contact the district offices, and they will get you in touch with Dr. Hetrick, and she is an amazing writer and resource. Also with us today is Jason Ritter, another board member. He works for Project Lead the Way, which does engineering curriculum for K through 12. He was a teacher of physics and engineering at the high school level, and so he is a great resource for us on the board because he has that good educator background and still is working in school districts and with teachers. So we are part of the Innovative Teaching Grants Committee. And we are so glad to be able to present this workshop for you guys. We have posted the grant package onto the website. The grant package includes the Innovative Teaching Grant application, the guidelines, a mid-year report, an end-of-year report, and FAQs. And you can get those on our website. The mid-year report only applies to people who have received a grant last year and are applying again this year. It is a very brief 2-question email that we are requesting last year's recipients who are applying again to send us, update us, let us know how the grant is going. Important dates that we wanted to draw your attention to. The mid-year reports that I just referenced are due December 31st by email. Our grant deadline is January 24th, 4 p.m., and those will also be submitted by email. We're going to announce the grant awards in March, and then the funding will be available sometime in May, and we will announce that date and have a prize posse where we actually bring the checks to the award winners. Your end-of-year report is due a year after that May, after you've done your program, and we have that report online as well. And we will send you a reminder halfway through the year to remind you to send that to us. I wanted to go over the foundation's mission because I think before you write a grant to a foundation, you need to know what they are all about. The Education Foundation was founded in 1992. It raises private sector funds to support academic excellence at every school in our district. Through our mission, we strive to bridge the funding gap between the district's state allocated budget and the actual budget required to provide the high performance education we have come to expect from DSEF. Funding is distributed annually through 3 DSEF grant programs. What is important about our mission as it applies to our grant program is that we only have 3 areas that we are focusing on funding. And it is teacher grants, student leadership grants, and the grant to the district. And all 3 of those funding areas are to benefit the academic excellence throughout our district. And when we talk about the funding gap between the district's state allocated budget and the actual budget, we are talking about the amount it costs to educate each child, which is somewhere around $7,000. And the state allocated budget is around $1,000, over $1,000. And so that gap to provide the kind of education that our district and you teachers have been providing requires this extra funding, and that is what the foundation is here to do. Our innovative teaching grants fund teacher-generated ideas that do not have an obvious funding source through the district. I wanted to talk about the proposal writing process. And I know you are teachers, and so I know that you know how to write, you know how to research, you know how to present things. And so I am only going through this because grant writing can be a little bit different. I didn't give you my background. I was a lawyer, still am a lawyer. I also did grant writing when I went to stay home with my kids. And even though I'd had extensive history writing and had written some grants and written for law, every time I applied for a grant in a workshop, I went to it. And so even though you are certainly all good writers, we know that, it's still good to know kind of what the parameters are and what the funders are looking for. So the first step that we would recommend that you take when writing your proposal is you need to come up with a great idea. And this one is somewhat easy. As I wrote on the slide, you have it covered. All the times you thought, I wish I could do this. I wish I could only do this with my kids. If only it weren't so expensive, now is your chance. And I am friends with enough of you guys on Pinterest to know that you are finding wonderful ideas out there. And you are implementing them the best you can with the resources you have. And so we want to provide a little more resource for you to continue doing that. So you find your great idea, you write down the best ones, and then you need to read the guidelines. Read the guidelines, the FAQs, and the application. You'll notice on the slide I said read the guidelines, read them again. You need to have that in your head before you even start writing. We spent actually quite a bit of time this grant cycle going through our guidelines and our FAQs to make sure that we had meaningful information and information that we would use to evaluate the grants. As I said, we spent time identifying what we want, pay attention to what we say. And I know that's what you tell your students, and it's the same concept here. Step 3 is to free write. It's always a good idea, and I said from one procrastinator to another, because I'm a procrastinator, the best thing to do is to look over your packet tonight, go home and spend a few minutes just brainstorming the ideas you already have in your head. Just go through and maybe pick 1 or 2 of the best ideas and brainstorm with the guidelines and the FAQs in mind to identify your best idea. I recommend setting aside 1 day a week to focus 15 to 30 minutes on your proposal. I know you're all busy, and you'll do it when you have time. So step 4 would be to start the draft, and this is where we really get into the nuts and bolts. I recommend having written grants, starting an outline and having your headings already set up just based on what our application says. We go through the project description and what we want and number the areas we want you to cover, and I would just set up an outline like that. Do some research. There's so much out there. If you are thinking of an idea that you could start with a premise, students become more violent after they drink Coke. And then you go and research and you will find information that supports that or doesn't. Whatever you find that can lead you to a new direction. But get that information, because when you're writing your grants, people want to see measurable results, measurable experiments, statistics that tell you why your program is necessary. Get a rough idea of the cost when you are doing your draft. If you start researching and you find out that your piece of equipment that you need for your grant is $50,000, it's probably better to look another direction. So you don't want to do a bunch of work and then find out the price. And get a rough idea of implementation, who you would need to affect your idea. The application itself starts with a signature page and a cover page, which are self-explanatory. We have a project description, which I talked about earlier, where we require you to provide an innovative idea addressing a need. There's measurement of accomplishment, a detailed work plan, and a budget. Those are the areas that your grant will need to follow. Under the project description, What is the need that your project addresses? And I talked about this a minute ago. That's a good place to include statistics, studies, reference to articles. Duration. What is the time frame for your project from start to finish? Number. Who is the population that is expected to benefit from your program? Is it your class, your grade, your school? You need to identify that population and give numbers. Bigger isn't necessarily better, but the reach of the program will be considered. There are areas of education that have small groups of people in them that have a greater need than other areas of education. So your project does not necessarily have to reach the whole school. We will definitely be looking for quality and quantity. How is your proposal innovative? Mary Jane, Dr. Hetrick, is actually going to go into a detailed explanation of what we mean by innovative, because that is really the cornerstone of our program. That's why it's called Innovative Teaching Grant. And she is going to give you, we define it in the application, and we define it in the guidelines. And Mary Jane is going to talk about it as well. But that is the key issue in your grant is how your program is innovative. What are your objectives? What is the result you want to achieve with your program? How do you measure those objectives? For instance, with the Playaways, which received a grant last year, one way you can measure objectives would be to maintain a record of how many times they get checked out. And then also the breakdown history. If you have an issue with them breaking down or needing repairs, that kind of thing is important too. Because when we talk about when you do your end of year report and you measure success, we are working with the school district to try to come up with a plan for really successful programs to maybe continue them in the district or expand them district-wide. And so we need to know what problems you encountered or what successes you encountered. And so you need to have that plan when you're writing the grant of how you're going to measure that and report it to us. We have a section on potential and one on support. Could this program be a pilot project for extension to other grades and schools? Grants that have that potential are going to be given greater priority. Will the program provide benefits beyond the grant cycle year? Obviously, if your program will keep providing benefits after the year it's implemented, that will get a higher score when we are evaluating. Who supports your program? Is there an opportunity to achieve matching funds? Do you have the district support? Do you have PTA support? Do you have community support for your program? Matching funds is a wonderful way to present your project because it shows you've done your homework, and it also shows that you already have one step forward. And what that is if you have maybe your PTA or another group that you've taken your project to and said, I want to do this, I'm going to apply for a grant, and will you give me half the money and I'll apply for half of the money to the foundation? And if you come to us and you've already gotten a commitment from the PTA or from another group for half of the money, that shows us that you have already done your homework and it's probably going to be a successful project. Measurement of accomplishment, we have the end of year report, which I discussed. This is very important, this part of it. How are you going to share the results of your project? We need you guys, the teachers who receive these grants, to spread the word. I think it is becoming clear to everyone that the more publicity that we get for providing funds for these programs, the more we can offer year after year. And so if your kids in your class, if you receive a grant and the parents of the children in your class know that the Education Foundation gave you the money for it and their child has benefited from it, those parents will give to the foundation. And then we will be able to provide more grant funds to you. So that is a very important part, and you need to address that in your grant paperwork, how you are going to share the program. The work plan, can you keep that off? Thank you. Sorry. Your work plan is part of the grant. How will you pull this off? You describe the activity, the positions responsible, the timeline, and the funds requested for the activity. And the work plan, we have a form for you, and it's fairly self-explanatory. The budget, ask for what you need to do the work. Justify requests that are significant or out of the ordinary. So when you are preparing your grant and you, in your mind, one of the things that you put on your budget is a high dollar amount or something you think, well, with the foundation, I think this is too much money for this particular thing. Explain it. Explain why you need that piece in your proposal. Reviewers emphasize project quality over budget. Again, follow the guidelines, and when in doubt, ask. So our funding parameters this year. We are planning on having a minimum level of $250 and a maximum funding level of $8,000. Special circumstances exist. We have the authority to meet and grant additional funds, but we are going with the parameters of $250 to $8,000. We hope to be able to award $70,000 through the Innovative Teaching Grants Program. That is wholly dependent on how our fundraising goes. And we hope every year to increase that. So that is, again, why it's so important for you teachers who have so much access to the children and the parents to spread our message. So step 5, you've gone through the application, you did your outline, you did your budget. Now you need to refine it. And this is why grant writing takes so long, because after you've already done all that effort, you need to be able to set it aside, maybe let a friend read it. I found that always to be helpful. And just take a few days away from it. Then go back and add your passion. Because when you're just putting in information and answering, you need to also add why it is important. Because you're not just doing academic writing, you are selling your idea to a committee. So again, I say reread the guidelines, because that is one indication that someone is committed if they can follow the rules. And I'm sure y'all feel the same way in your classroom. So what makes a winning proposal? A winning proposal addresses an important question with an innovative idea, well expressed, with a clear indication of methods for pursuing the idea, evaluating the findings, and making them known to all who need to know. The top 10 reasons grants are rejected. The first one is the project doesn't address the foundation priorities. Guidelines weren't followed. It wasn't a compelling idea. Ideas are not clearly presented. Methodology appears to be flawed. Overuse of jargon, overly ambitious. The narrative and the budget do not correspond. Sloppy presentation, or the work has already been done. Once you're finished writing your grant, you're going to be able to submit it email this year to us, January 24th by 5. We conduct a blind application review process. Your name will be redacted from the grant. We will have, I believe it's going to be Kathy Leopold and Mr. Young, Greg Young, are going to help us with the review. He will not know who has written the grants. She will not know who's written the grants. It is not your peers evaluating whether it is a good or bad project. They are there solely to tell us if the technology works with the district and if the idea works with the curriculum. So it is up to you guys to do that research ahead of time, because if they come back to us and tell us, even after all that hard work you've done, that your program is incompatible with the district, either technology or curriculum, then you won't be awarded. So it is incumbent on you to contact them during the grant writing process. And we've heard a lot of feedback that I think probably the biggest constructive criticism that we've gotten is everyone would like feedback. And so we are going to make that a priority. Haven't quite figured out how we're going to do it, but we are going to do it. So everyone who applies for a grant is going to get some feedback, win or lose, because it has been very clear that people want that. And it makes sense, because if you don't get a grant, you definitely want to know what you could do to have one the next year. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Hetrick to talk to you about what I think is the most important part of this grant process.
Well, the $1 million question that we have gotten over and over again is what is innovation, according to the foundation. So we have the, just press enter to get this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so rather than reading this whole thing to you, it really is hard to encompass in a definition, but that's what people wanted. So this is what we came up with. I wanted to point out on the second sentence, impacts learning. So this is not where technology is an end unto itself. Most of the grant applications received do incorporate some of the latest technology, but there are plenty of applications where the latest technology is nowhere to be found in the proposal. So the technology is not an end unto itself, it's a means for learning. The entrepreneurial spirit that's referenced about halfway down, if you're familiar with the high school spirit shop, perfect example of entrepreneurial spirit. There's no technology in there, to my knowledge, beyond a cash register, credit card machine, but they are putting business principles to work in that tiger shack. And so what we're looking for, which, by the way, is very much in tandem with the administration, are things that are pioneering, pilot projects, engaging students in learning. When I hear engaging students, I think not of my own teaching experience so much as I do my kids. And I have girl, boy, boy, and the difference between how the girl has learned and the boys is stunning. And so I'm always intrigued to hear how teachers are finding ways to engage my sons who otherwise would not be terribly interested in school. So finding their passion, finding ways to reach them, more personalized learning, those kinds of things. Innovation is unique to each project. And so again, if you incorporate technology, as Rachel said, make sure that you've checked with Kathy Leopold first. Okay. If you go to our website, you will see some of the examples of programs that have been awarded thus far. If you notice the third one down, oh, I haven't switched it, sorry. The Mimios. And one of the next slides, I'm going to be talking about another $1 million question of, well, if it was innovative last year, is it still innovative this year? And so we'll be using those Mimios as an example. The grant scoring rubric. A lot of detail on it. Of course, all of this package is going to be on our website. But I believe Rachel pretty much covered the need for the project being clearly documented. One of the things that I think of with this that I've seen so much in grant proposals is there's this assumption, whether it is a teacher or somebody working in a domestic violence shelter, they work with the population every day. They have a gut instinct about, I know this will work. And I'm a big believer in a teacher's gut instinct, but for the grant proposal, it has to be documented, that logic model and why there is a need. Number two, about being detailed enough. My analogy here is that I will tell students who are writing an article analysis, you know that I've read the article, I know what the author's trying to say, I know what his most important points are, but you've got to assume that I hand your paper to an intelligent person, but someone who's not in the field, who has not read that article, and it needs to be clear to that person. So likewise, we have a grant review committee, and these are people who you just have to assume that while they're intelligent, they will not know the jargon of the field necessarily, and theories, things that you take for granted in the educational field. If I could jump down 4 and 5, that's where it ties in to the definition of innovative that we just talked about. Innovative solutions to a problem, enhancing, enriching student learning, and those 21st century skills that we keep hearing about. And one of the things that I love about that push is, again, it's not always tied to technology. It is about how the students are learning, what they're going to be expected to do when they get to college and on the job. On Part B, the work plan and timeline. I don't know how familiar everyone is with that term logic model, so I'll explain my own jargon. You have your student population, you have activities that you want to do that will be detailed in the work plan. You know what your goals and objectives are that will flow from those activities. And I would suggest documenting potential outside influences, those environmental factors that could have an influence on the success of your project. Again, that shows the research that Rachel talked about, because it's okay if a project fails. The whole point is fostering this environment of continual learning, pioneering, and there will be some failures along the way that will help inform the process for the next grant. Measurable criteria, I believe Rachel already addressed. But again, this is one of those areas where I love this part, and usually people hate this part. So if you get to that part and you're thinking, I've done the research, I know that this project could help this group of students, but I cannot think of how to measure success, then let me know, because I might be able to help you come up with some kind of quasi-variables that show that you're attempting to measure your success. And then, of course, in the last one, really can't emphasize that enough, as I've gotten involved with the foundation and try to spread the word, and I'm amazed at the number of people who don't know about the foundation yet, and these same people might be very supportive of our teachers. So just getting the word out. Okay, so this was the other $1 million question I talked about. If it was innovative last year, is it innovative this year? Or another common question was, I'm hearing that if it involves an iPad, it will be, put aside, because that's so yesterday. So let's go through these to just try to clarify. First and foremost, given our funding, and we hope to surpass our funding goals, we might have less, but whatever that amount is, the first priority, brand new pioneering pilot programs that pass muster, so to speak. Obviously, if it's brand new pioneering, but the logic model seems a little iffy, the research isn't there, then that number one priority is assuming everything else is A-okay. Second priority, extension of projects to other campuses. So if it was done last year, like through a Ed Foundation grant, everybody loves it. So it's not innovative to the district, but it would be innovative to another campus because they've never done it before. So that's when, in the second level of priority, extending those projects with the proven success, assuming they've done the mid-year report that Rachel referred to. Number 3, expansion of projects within a campus. We've seen this year at DSE. The foundation, remember I said MIMEOs on that list of projects that were awarded last year. MIMEOs were such a hit at DSE that the PTA decided to make it a fundraising priority to expand, and I'm not sure the extent, but I know that at least an entire grade level, if not more than one grade level, now has MIMEOs, thanks to the PTA following up with DSE or with foundation funds. And then finally, the last one we have heard, gosh, the foundation awarded this grant. It involved, for instance, iPads, and they're being used so much they're falling apart. And so it's not that refunding those previous grants would never happen. It's just that it's the bottom of the priority list. But again, if it's a program that has proven its worth, then hopefully those teachers are also seeking out, whether it's PTA or other funds, to replace that equipment, that they're in touch with their principal, with administrations. This is working great. Let's find a way to refund. So does anybody have a question about that priority level? Okay, let's see what else we have here. Was that it? Is that our last slide? Okay, so questions about any of the slides? Is innovation still clear as mud? It's such a nebulous concept, yes.
Can you submit more than one application?
I think.
Repeat the question so they can.
Oh, the question was, can you submit more than one application in a funding cycle? I've seen no prohibition against that. Yes. That's very ambitious. Any other questions?
We've got one.
Yes.
Okay, no.
Do you have questions?
We still have our remote sites.
We do. They're still there.
I believe so. It is.
Any questions on the remote sites?
Is all of your contact information on the website for people who need to contact you?
Is contact information on the website for those of us that need to, for those that need to contact us?
At least the email address.
Okay.
Jen Misko, the staff assistant, is fantastic about communicating with us, and if you send an email to her, she will forward it to us ASAP.
And I'll put my email on there. I'm very approachable too. So is Mary Jane. So we'll get
No, that's a good idea.
emails on there. Nothing else?
No other questions? Nobody off site? We good?
I do have, well, I have a help with the answer, but she asked if we were able to apply for more than one grant, and I've been awarded more than one grant in the same school year, so the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you can apply for more, and in fact, somebody got awarded a couple.
More than
ones,
one.
so there you go.
The precedent has been set.
All right.
Well, thank you all so much.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Really appreciate it. The evening.
Thank you, Tom.
For the students application that we already submitted, when do we get them?
Okay, I think we're done.
For what?
For the students.
All right, you guys off site, I think we're done.
From the
We've got a
website?
couple weeks.
I don't know. I think
Can I talk right now? Yes, ma'am, I can print you one right now.
the student leadership grants, did they say to sign on? I think they said it's not the same committee, it's a different committee, so it's from Mark Hanley. But I thought that they said pretty shortly. So you had a student?
Jason.